Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? When you come on, say hello. I'm Teresa, and I'm here representing Pentart today. We're going to do a fun project with some resin and a little bit of reverse decoupage. So let me know when you're here. I hope we have a lot of friends joining us today, but it's 6 o'clock p.m., I guess, in Europe. It is noon here in the United States. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the owner of Decoupage Queen Paper. We are getting ready over at Decoupage Queen. We're getting ready for our spring release, which we're announcing on Friday. So we are very busy, but I thought I would take some time and show you guys something I've been working on. Coasters made from the super glass resin. So pretty exciting stuff with a very good result with the super glass resin. I hadn't actually used it. Hey, Kimberly, how are you? I hadn't actually used it prior to a few weeks ago. And now that I have used it, I am completely smitten with it. And I am so glad to be able to show you what I've been working on with it. Now, by no means am I a resin expert. I have used a lot of different brands, but my use of it is purely recreational. I do not consider myself a resin expert. There are plenty of other resin experts on the Pentart team, but this was something fun and kind of different for me, and I had a really good result, so I wanted to show you what I did. Hey, Paulette, how are you? So I am going to, I've got 1 hour, so I don't have a lot of time to chit chat. So I'm just going to briefly show you a couple of examples of what we're talking about. And this is one of them that I did. And you can see like the image is actually suspended in the coaster. The back of it is gold. And then same with this one. We're actually going to be doing this one. So I'll talk through how I did it and what you need to do. Okay. So, I'm going to switch my camera down and go ahead and get started because there are a lot of steps. Now I've done a lot of prep work in advance because we know that resin takes a while to cure. And I don't have a 24-hour window to do this live. So I have done some things in advance, but I will show you exactly what I did step by step. So I'm going to turn my camera down. Hello, Baretti. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing any names. All right, so I'm going to turn my camera down and hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can straighten you up just a little bit. I have a lot of stuff over here to the side. So, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do, this is actually a set of 4, and they're like geode shape silicone molds. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you my first step, and that is how to get, these already have the resin in them, but I want to show you how I did that. Uh-oh, I think my cat was in here. So I want to show you how I did that. And I'm going to just do one really quickly here and set it off to the side. And anytime you're using resin, you always want to wear gloves because these things do have some chemicals in there. We want to protect our skin. So these are nitrile gloves. And I also don't want to get my hands really sticky. So I'm just going to pour a small amount, and I've got this measuring cup. It's a silicone measuring cup. It's very easy to clean, which is why I like to use this. So I'm just going to measure a small amount. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Laura. Yep. So I got these on Amazon. I'm going to just measure 2 ounces in here just so I can show you how I got this part. And so I've got, in the United States, we go by ounces, not milliliters. Although we're coming around, I have to say, with some of these Pentar products that measure in milliliters, we are starting to, I actually am starting to kind of think in terms of milliliters as well. But anyway, for purposes of this demo, it's just a small amount because I'm only going to fill about half of this up and then let it cure overnight. Hey, Jill. Hey, Jill. All right, so 2 ounces. There we go. And I'm just going by the lines on my thing. Now, technically, I think you're supposed to mix them independently of each other to prevent over pouring. I can say that I am a pretty confident pourer, so I just do it all in the same cup. And I'm, you know, pretty diligent about where I start and end. And so far, I haven't had a problem. So you want to stir it for about 2 minutes. Make sure it's nice and stirred. Again, this is just a small amount. So how's everybody doing today? Hope you guys are doing well. We just got back. My family and I took a trip. We went to Disney last week, and we actually just got back on Saturday. So yeah, we're pretty busy, but this doesn't take long. So I will take my time and just kind of show you what I did here. Now, one important thing that I want to point out when you're doing this is to use a clean cup. You probably don't want to use the same cup that you use for like colored or black resin, because all those little particles can stay behind. So just important to kind of make sure you're starting with a clean pouring cup. And I have a little speck in here, so I'm just going to try to get it out. It's not going to be that noticeable once we start working with it. Let's see if I can get it. I don't know if I can get it or not. It's just a tiny little black dot, but I know it's going to bother me. Okay, so I did get that. Now you can see, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. I don't know how much you can actually see these bubbles, but there are some bubbles in here. So what we're going to do with that is just, this is a kitchen torch, a butane kitchen torch. And we're just going to, you can also use alcohol or a heat gun. We're just going to kind of lightly torch that. Let's see if it's going to work or not. Yep, so we're just going to kind of lightly torch those bubbles out. It's very quick torch. So what will happen if you do that for too long or too much, you'll actually get a little bit of yellowing in there. So you can see I got a little torch happy, but it's not going to really affect my result too much. So, so I actually poured these before I went on vacation, and there's like some dust and stuff have gotten inside them, which is no big deal really. But all right, so I'm going to just set this to the side, and basically you're going to let this sit for about 24 hours before you move on to the next step. And these have already sat and they have cured. So we're going to go ahead and work on our coasters next, okay? Because these are cured already. You can hear them tapped. I'm not actually going to pull these out, and I'll explain why in a minute. But what I am going to do is, excuse me, I have made some of these. These are like my templates, which match up with the shapes. So I'm actually going to use these to trace out the shapes of the decoupage that I want to do. Okay, so it's like a clear guide that I can see through to make sure that I'm getting my images lined up properly. So I'm going to keep these handy because I intend to make a lot of different sets of these coasters. And these are just going to be so useful for getting my images lined up exactly where I want them. So I'm just going to switch them around a little bit and play with that, play with these the way they're being lined up here. There we go. So I think that, and I'm going to get a little bit of white on there, but I'm not worried about that too much on the edge. I think I should get more of this bird. But this is just a really easy way. If you make yourself some template blanks, it's a really easy way to see what you're doing. Okay, so I'm just going to trace around. With a pen so I can see it. And again, these are the exact, these templates are from these molds. So I know that I have 4, they're all a little bit different, but I know that they're going to line up exactly inside my coasters. And I can use these templates over and over again. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put that to the side. And I'm just going to start cutting them out. And I'm actually going to cut them in like just a little bit from where I drew the line, because I don't want it to go necessarily all the way to the edge. And hopefully that will become, the reason for that will become apparent here pretty soon too. Okay. And I'm just using scissors here. I'm not necessarily worried about fluffy edges on this one. That's that one. Because I'm going to be painting a little border around the edges. So that they have a nice kind of a geode looking edge to them. So this one's probably, sometimes it's like, okay, which coaster am I working on? I think this is that one, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Is that it? That's the hardest part, is figuring out which one you're working with. Actually, it might be this one. Yep, that's it. Okay. And we are going to reverse decoupage these on, because the underneath side is going to be the front or top. So that one goes there, I believe. Yes. Has a little bit of resin still on it. And last but not least, so any questions so far? Hello, Elizabeth, how are you? So how's everybody's week going? Anybody doing anything fun? And I guess the other question is, what is the weather like where you're at? It is, it's decent here. It's been pretty cool, but it's actually starting to warm up a little bit. Okay, so actually had a little bit of resin residue there. All right, so the next thing I want to do is, just because these have been sitting for a little while, I just want to clean these up. So I'm just going to spray a little bit of spray on there just to clean them up just a little bit before I get started. Hold on, bear with me 1 minute. I need to find a paper towel. Just because I have fingerprints and dust, etc., etc. Hey, Amanda, how are you? Okay. So I'm just kind of clean these up. Now I'm leaving these in their molds because I don't really want to break the seal yet. Because what can happen if I break the seal is when I pour the top layer of resin on, it can actually seep underneath a little bit onto the other side, which it's not a problem because you can just buff that out and like recoat the top of it. But I want to try to prevent that as much as possible. See where it kind of seeped out. So I'm leaving the coasters, the blanks, inside their castings or inside their molds to help prevent some of the seeping around the edges. Okay. I just used glass cleaner. I would probably recommend alcohol, Cindy, but I don't know where my alcohol is right at this second. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually take some of this. This is the Decor Metal Matte, and this is Oxford Blue. And the reason I chose this color is because it really complements the paper that I'm using. And this paper, by the way, is a Decoupage Queen paper from last fall, and it is called Vintage Tonics. And so I'm just going to take this Decor Metal, and I'm actually just going to kind of take it, let me use a smaller paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint an outline around the edge with a small paintbrush. Okay, and I don't really care if it touches the edge of my mold. In fact, it probably will. But I don't care too much about that because this is silicone and it will clean right up. Now, if I were using liquid metal, it might be a different story because it might stick to the silicone, but this is just paint. So, and I'm just kind of dotting around the edges. I am actually going to do 2 coats of this. And what that's doing is just kind of creating a nice border edge so that when I do that reverse decoupage, this will be the edge instead of the tippy edge of the paper. Okay. And I am going to do 2 coats because it's not fully covering. Okay, so I'll come back. And I want it kind of loose. Like I'm not trying to go I'm not trying to go for exact, you know, line, like straight lines. I want it to be pretty loose, if that makes sense. So I am basically doing like the exact same thing on the coaster that I showed you. So you can see exactly how I got the result for that coaster. So you can mix it up and play around. But I like the decor metal because it kind of sticks to any surface, like glass. So I guess you could compare this to like glass or plastic. So it's going to adhere. Okay. And I'm not worried about that little yellow spot. It's not going to be that noticeable. But because this is a reverse technique, you know, let's kind of talk about some things we could do. If we wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to the whole image, you could put a little bit of like sparkling gel down over the whole glass piece. You could also do a fine line crackle in here. You could certainly do that. So if you've done any kind of reverse decoupage before, like on glass, it's the same exact concept. Only we are also creating our surface too. Yep, this is Decor Metal Oxford Blue. Thank you, Jill. And I chose that because it's the color that I have that most closely matches the color palette in the paper that I'm using. You could also do a little bit of antiquing in here, like maybe a little bit of maybe like a brown kind of wash to give it a more vintage look. So lots of things that you could do before you lay the paper down. But just remember, like everything that you do is done in reverse. So painting it white on the back will be the last step. All right, so I'm just going to dry and do one more coat there. All right, and let's do one more coat. And if I miss anything, it's okay, because actually the last step I'm going to do is do a layer of blue resin over the backing. So that would show through to the other side. It just might not look as seamless. Has anybody ever done this before? I'm just curious if you've played with resin and making coasters. Now I have done it like on tiles, and then where I kind of decoupaged it on top of the tile and then poured the resin over the top of the tile just as a finish. So I I kind of like this though because it's suspended, like the whole thing is resin and then the image is like suspended in the middle. Hi, Roberta. How are you? So I keep dropping little specks of dust. Okay. Yeah, I did little, you can also do the same thing with pendants. Like if you have a glass cabochon mold, you can do the same thing with pendants. And I thought I had one, but I don't have one handy. So here's one that I made that's like, is just a heart pendant. And I put gold flakes in there. So you could also do like gold flakes around the edges. So much fun stuff you can do, but I like to incorporate the decoupage images into it just because I am, you know, like all about decoupage. So anytime I can try incorporate some decoupage into something, I won't pass up the opportunity. And the molds for the whole process. Just kind of a mess. Yeah. It is a mess, Cindy. So I will let you know if this ends up being a better result because, you know, I was able to kind of like buff out the seepage underneath and then like pour a fresh coat on top. But I think this is going to work better. And I also think that the paint is creating a little bit of a barrier too, I think. So that's the theory. That is my theory. Again, I'm not a resin expert, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I am going to play around with it. All right, so let me... I don't know, but I'm on a call. Okay, so all right, so we are going to go ahead and flip this over just like this, just to make sure that we're lined up before I decoupage anything. Okay. Oh. Let's see. Yeah, that one. And make sure I don't have any holes either in my work. Because if I did have some areas where it was like white showing, then I'd want to go in and touch that up a little bit with some blue. But it looks like we're in good shape. I don't see anything necessarily problematic. So I think I'm going to go ahead now and reverse decoupage. So yes, Amanda, Jill answered your question. There is a layer of clear resin in here that I poured 2 weeks. I actually poured it like a week and a half ago, and it's completely cured and dry. So that's like I filled half the mold up with clear resin and set it to the side in preparation for this, because I knew we wouldn't have time to go through the whole thing from start to finish. Okay, so now I'm just taking regular decoupage glue. This is the Pentart matte, and we're doing reverse decoupage. So all that means is we're just gluing the image on face down. Okay. Now it is important to make sure that all of your layers are completely dry before adding the final step, because if it's not, that could affect the integrity of your resin in the long term. So my recommendation, if you were going to do this, I would recommend letting this sit overnight to completely dry before you pour on the top layer of resin. Okay, but we don't have that kind of time. We're going to take our chances, and then we get what we get, right? So it will look good. I just don't know like how long it would last, since I'm not taking my time with it. So always, 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 anytime you're doing work like this, you know, I recommend not speeding through the process. Let nature do the drying. Okay. But for the sake of demonstrations, you know, always your demonstrators, for the sake of time, are speeding things up with a hairdryer just to kind of show you all of the steps involved. Okay. It doesn't mean that we're going to turn around and have a Pinterest worthy project at the end necessarily. The important thing is that you understand the process and that you have a good result at the end. Okay. All right. And then one more. The liquid metal really does look nice on it, I can say. So I'll show you one that I did. I think I showed you one at the beginning, one that I had done with liquid metal around the edges. And that came out really, really pretty. So this one here, I actually have there, that's liquid metal around the edges. And I thought that came out really, really pretty. So just so you can see like a couple of examples. My brush marks. Oh, really? Okay. You know what? I didn't notice that, Cindy. I was just looking at mine to see if I could notice any brush strokes, and I don't see any on this one. And I'm using this one, the decoupage varnish and glue that dries completely clear. I mean, there's some imperfections, but these are handmade items, so I don't get too crazy about little imperfections. That's kind of what tells people that I made it, right? Okay, so decoupage. Now we all know, or at least you should know by now, and you can kind of see here, I've got a little white edge where some of that white peeks through. But decoupage, remember when you decoupage, you want to decoupage on a white background, right? So when you do reverse decoupage, the same thing is true. You want there to be some white on the back side of the paper. So we're actually going to just paint white right onto the back of this paper here. Okay, and that's what's going to make the image really pop, because I painted the back side of this paper, I painted it white. So that's going to make the image pop. If I were to have poured this gold right over the top without doing white, you would not be able to see this image as clearly. Okay, so super important not to skip this step. This is what's making the image really visible on the other side, is to put this white paint on the back of that paper. Okay, so some people might not realize that you still have to do this with reverse decoupage, but you do. And then you can pour your other layer. All right, so don't skip this step, guys, because you can't really see what's going on the other side when you're doing this. So you're not going to be able to see what it looks like until it's dry and you pull it out. Know what I mean? Okay. Could I just put white resin? Yes, yeah, I could. But I'm actually going to try to, like with my mica powder, I'm actually going to try to get as close as possible to this blue as I can, so that it kind of looks all seamless and intentional. But yes, you could certainly just use white resin over the back. Although, well, the only thing I would say about using white resin on the back is if you have some seepage through to the other side, that's going to be more noticeable than like a clear resin with a little bit of mica in it, if that makes sense. Now we shouldn't have too much seepage because we left it in the mold. And again, I think I've created enough of a barrier with the paint, the decoupage glue around the edge, so that it's minimal, but we may still get a little bit. So, and I would probably recommend, like if you're doing pendants too, I would leave those in the mold also. I have a cat hair or something in there. Right, if I haven't lifted it out, it shouldn't seep under. Exactly. On some of them, I did kind of pull the edges away just to see if it was dry. So those are the ones I'm mostly concerned about. Because I'm an impatient person. I can't just sit it and leave it. Like, I'm like, I want to know what's happening. So I'm touching it, and I end up ruining a lot of pieces because I can't wait. It's just how I roll. And then I go, okay, well, I know what this does after 30 minutes. All right. All right, so now I'm just going to dry one more time, and then we'll mix up some blue resin to pour on the back. Yeah, I have a little hair in here. It's just going to be permanently embedded into that coaster, but you won't be able to see it. Okay, so again, you want that good and dry, and I'm just going to move that off to the side. I may dry it a little bit more before I do the final step, but basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with some of my mica powder and try to get as close as possible to this color using the products that I have on hand. I'm probably not going to be able to get it exact, but I should be able to get it pretty close. So I'll just show you how I do that. And I'm mixing up an 8-ounce, a larger batch this time because I want to be able to cover all 4 of them. So let me grab my gloves again, or a fresh pair of gloves, and a mixing stick. Okay, and I'm going to do about, it's a whole cup. Okay, so 8 ounces, which is in milliliters, I think it's maybe 220, 230, something like that. All right. 250. Yeah, it's about 250. right. And now I'm going to take my little stick here and stir for 2 minutes. I think the fun part is mixing this mica powder in here. I just find that very rewarding. My other cup that I used a moment ago, it tipped over and got resin all over my table. So on this one, on the back of this one, I actually poured that the gold pigment powder. Look how pretty that is. I just think that is so pretty. So I think we need pigment powders and all the colors like that. It's just gorgeous. So I'm just going to use mica powder. I haven't played with the resin tints yet because I generally prefer metallics. Just seems to be what I gravitate toward. Okay. All right, so let me grab a couple little popsicle sticks. And I'm just going to try to make a little blend. This one is Art Mica in gold and blue. And this one is gold and green. Oops. And let's see what we end up with that. Okay. So that's pretty nice. I would say that could probably work just like that. But this color is a little bit darker, so I am going to try to darken it up just a tad. Actually, I'm going to try to use maybe a little bit of this orange to darken it up. Because when you add orange is a complement to blue. And when you add orange or any color to its complement, it darkens the original color. So I'm just going to add a little bit of orange here, or muddies it down a little bit, maybe. That makes sense, so that it's a little less vibrant. So we're getting a little bit closer, and then I might add a little bit brown. Hi, Judith. And then Erzsébet, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I didn't understand your message, so I'm not sure if anybody's on who can help me translate Erzsébet's question. I think you're asking if it's a silicone, if these are silicone, and if that's the question, yes, they are. Okay, so I think I'm going to add just a touch of this anthracite in there as well. Made from silicone. Yes, the molds are made from silicone. All right, so I'm just going to add a touch of the anthracite. Okay. And I think that gets us, it gets us close enough anyway. It's not 100%, but, you know, I'm just going for something that's not going to clash. Okay. All right. All right. Mix that all up. All right. And then I think we're good to go ahead and pour. And I need to save myself enough for each one. I think that color came out pretty good. I used up 8 ounces, Amanda. And that worked out perfectly. So that's what I would use for the clear part too. Mix up 8 ounces and then 8 ounces for the other side as well. So let me show you a couple other things. Clean my work table just a little bit. And then I'll ask Sylvia as our design team coordinator. So I will ask her to post the images once I have them, once I pull them out. And again, I'm just going to torch a little bit just to pop the bubbles. And it's fun to see what this color does. Like, so this is kind of what happens when it dries, you guys. It's sort of, the color starts to spread a little bit. And I've got some bubbles here, which after about 15 minutes or so, you need to come back and check your bubbles again. I'm using this is called Vitelware, and I think I got that on Amazon. So, so this is what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so this is basically everything that I just showed you are these coasters here, and it's going to be so fun tomorrow to pull these out and have another set. I'm so excited. I just love these so much, especially that one with the rainbow. Now, the other thing I was going to tell you is I think it could be really cool to take some gold leafing around the sides to do that, or maybe to put some liquid metal around the sides. I think that would look really pretty too. But just to show you what you can do with resin, give you some ideas. and hopefully some inspiration to try a couple different things on your own. And don't be afraid to like dive into these products, because it's really not that hard. It's just a little bit of, it just takes a little bit of practice. And you can see, like, even with the mica colors that I had, I was really able to get pretty close to the color that I wanted. Okay. So sky is the limit. You can put all kinds of things inside these, decoupage transfers, image transfer, excuse me. Sky is the limit. So have fun, play with it. And thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, Pentart, for hosting me today. And again, we'll share the pictures once they're done. But thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.